I see it as probably, well, one of the top reasons that the governor exists in Gibraltar is to recognise people. The Queen's personal representative, and by extrapolation, therefore, the honours system is all about Her Majesty the Queen recognising outstanding work, outstanding performance on behalf of the United Kingdom, the Commonwealth, and of course Gibraltar. So we have this level of state awards, which are the personal gift of Her Majesty the Queen, and they range in different orders, depending on the history of the order itself. And so we have 4 or 5 state awards, which are like the Companion of St Michael and St George, which is principally given to those that have been involved in international and diplomatic relations. And then you get the Order of the British Empire, the Knight of the British Empire, the Commander of the British Empire, the Order of the British Empire, the Officer of the British Empire, the Member of the British Empire, and the British Empire Medal, that range. And that range recognises in different degrees an outstanding contribution, either to a national product, a regional product, or even just a hands-on. So take the British Empire Medal. It is particularly designated for those that have done a hands-on piece of work that makes a real difference to the community, maybe over a short period of time, but it was reinstituted recently, and for that, if you receive the British Empire Medal, you are able to put BEM at the end of your name. And I can give you an example of that was Ros Astengo, who runs the Nautilus project, of course, who received the BEM at the last turn of the honours list. The Gibraltar Award, in my opinion, is one of the greatest awards you can possibly receive, albeit it is not a state award. It was approved by Her Majesty the Queen in 1954 specifically for recipients in Gibraltar. There is no other overseas territory that has a medal that has been sanctioned by Her Majesty the Queen in this way. And so when the Honours Board sits, it considers the contribution of those nominations that have come before it. And the Honours Board can distinguish between those that will be recommended to London for Her Majesty's State Awards and those that the Honours Board wishes to recognise internally in Gibraltar on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen, and that is the Gibraltar Award.
Well, you've just given Ros Astengo of the Nautilus project an example of a recipient of the state honours, but what about the Gibraltar Award? Who would you like to see nominated for that?
Well, I think I can give you 3 classic examples that we've achieved over the last few years. Monsignor Charles Azzopardi, for his amazing work for the community down in St Teresa's, the cookhouse, and all the things that he does to support the not so privileged in Gibraltar, and of course across La Linea. A closely defined piece of work, a man who is completely admired by the community. And the Honours Board, in awarding the Gibraltar Award, wanted to recognise his contribution for Gibraltar. More recently as well, Nathan Lightbody of the GHA, who went around swabbing and testing people throughout the COVID experience. And Sandra Nito, exactly the same recipient for the Gibraltar Award for what she did for all of us during the COVID response. That very dedicated, very singular application of their dedication to Gibraltar, recognised in Gibraltar's own national award, the Gibraltar Award. I think those are 3 classic examples that I would just like to highlight.
So what can you tell us about the process of choosing the recipients? Once the applications are received, they go before the Honours Board, and there also has to be 2 letters of recommendation.
They do. Honours are not made up by the Governor or the Chief Minister or members in authority. Honours are given to people who are nominated by other people. You could call them the People's Awards that are awarded by Her Majesty the Queen, in effect. So there is a big process. Luckily in Gibraltar, in the 2 years that I've been here, we're getting more and more nominations of people who want to recognise other people in the community. And so this year, in fact, I can tell you, 5 have gone up for nominations for the New Year's honours list, the state honours list. I hope we'll achieve 5. We may not achieve 5, because at the end of the day, the honours are not just given out. There is a strict criteria, And we have to balance those against the recipients in the United Kingdom, around the Commonwealth. But Gibraltar has done famously in getting the recognition that the people in Gibraltar deserve. We've been very fortunate to get the number of state honours that we have. So in effect, the nominations come in supported by 2 independent references. They go before the Honours Board, which sits again in around about October and November. 6 members of the Honours Board. We look through them. We look against the criteria that are set down for the awards. And then I personally write them up and send them through to London, where they sit before the Honours Board in London, the Higher Honours Board in London, before eventually they go to the Prime Minister for confirmation, and then once the Prime Minister's content, they go to the Queen for final approval. So it's quite a long process. So the advertisement we put out today is for honours in the Queen's birthday of 2023. So there's quite a process to go through. The checks and controls are incredible. We would never wish to put up a proposal to Her Majesty the Queen that would ultimately not be accepted by Her Majesty. So everyone that goes up has gone through the due diligence, hence the 2 references. And what I love about the process here, Ros, is the very fact that in the 2 years I've been here, when I first arrived, we didn't get many nominations. This year, for the New Year's Honours list, we had 50 nominations, and we have to distill that down. Every nomination is reviewed completely, and then we have to make this awful decision as to whether or not we can put it up to London, whether it deserves a Gibraltar Award, or ultimately, at the end of the day, and I don't belittle this at all, is for me to be able to invite somebody in and just say, thank you. 2 words. They don't mean much in themselves, but when I do say thank you, I do mean it with a huge deal of gratitude and heartfelt thanks.